Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me today and kind of wrapping up this section of our math, which has been focused a lot on linear equations and graphing and kind of all the little things that go with it. So yesterday's videos were talking about how to take an equation and turn it into slope-intercept form. So a linear equation and how to put it in slope-intercept form. So just a reminder, here is the equation for slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. And so we really kind of looked at those parts. The m is always the slope, the rise over the run, and the b is the y-intercept. So if you have not watched that video, you may want to watch that one before you watch this one, because today's video is going to kind of build on that. Okay, it's going to actually be the other way around. So what happens if we start with the line and have to find the equation rather than have the equation to make the line? And so it's really not that much different, but you have to be really understanding in the concept of slope-intercept form and graphing and all that. So just to review, in order to graph a line like we did yesterday, you only need two things. You need the slope and you need the y-intercept, okay? And as long as you have those two things, it's really easy to go right to a graph and start with the y-intercept, put your point on the y where it crosses, and then follow the slope from there, okay? When you can do it that way, then you can skip a function table. One exception would be if your particular line doesn't cross right at an intersection for the y-intercept. So maybe it's like 3 3/4. That may be something where if you need to be exact or precise, you may not be able to do slope-intercept form. You might want to fall back on a table and find some specific points that fall on that line and graph it that way, okay? But so we did that work yesterday, and today we're going to do the opposite, finding the equation when a line is given, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we start with a line, and we need to write an equation that goes with it. So think about it. In order to do that, you need two things. You need slope and you need y-intercept. Okay, so before we even look at a line, let's just say a line has a slope of 4, okay, and the y-intercept is -3, okay? So if the slope is 4 and the y-intercept is -3, all we got to do is take those parts and put it back into our slope-intercept form, okay? So y equals mx plus b. That's our slope-intercept form. The only things that we're going to replace are the m and the b. Slope is m, y-intercept is b, okay? So y equals the slope, 4. It's attached to the x, plus b. In this case, it's a -3, so instead of plus b, it's going to be -3. Y is equal to 4x minus 3. That would be the slope-intercept form for a line that had a slope and an intercept of -3. Okay, let's do another one. How about the slope is -5/4 and the y-intercept is 7. Okay, slope is -5/4, the y-intercept is 7. Replace our m and our b. Slope is -5/4x. Y-intercept is a +7. Okay, so let's just start with that. Start with just knowing where where they go and what it looks like once you put that into the form. And I think that's how one of the worksheets that I've sent out today start the worksheet. So let's take a look at that one. That would be this one. All right, and so on this worksheet, it's like numbers 1 through 5, they give you the slope and the y-intercept. These first couple give you the y-intercept as a point. Remember, it really is a point, 0, 2, but that means it crosses at the 2 on the y. So we're really looking at the second number here. Okay, why don't you look at number 2? Why don't you do number 2 for me real quick? Slope's -7, the y-intercept is 0, 0. Write that equation out. Let me see. We'll see if you got it, okay? And I'll go ahead and do it, and then I'll share. Okay, so the slope is -7, and the y-intercept is 0, 0. We're going to put it into this format, y equals mx plus b. So when we rewrite that, y is equal to -7x. The y-intercept is 0, which means it crosses at 0, 0, so we're not going to put a plus or a minus 0 here. And so there is our formula or our equation of that line. Okay, take a look at it because it may look a little funny to you since it doesn't have the plus or minus a number. But I want you to recognize that when that happens, when you see no plus or minus a number, what you know about that, just from looking at the equation, is that it crosses at 0, crosses right in the center of the grid. Okay, 0, 0, the origin. All right. Okay, let's go back to our sheet. Y-intercept is 1/2 in this one. So y is equal to -3x plus 1/2. Your y-intercept does not have to be a whole number, okay? So you might try some of those, but I think you probably got it. I think you should do it. The second part of this worksheet is what we worked on a little bit yesterday, which is taking something in standard form, taking an equation in standard form and turning it into slope-intercept form. So why don't you go ahead and do that? We'll do this number 6, it's review. Come back and watch how I do it, okay? Go ahead and pause your screen. Okay, so, well, this isn't actually standard form, it's just not in slope-intercept form. So in order to get slope-intercept form, remember we're trying to get y alone. So really this is a fairly easy one to get y alone because all we have to do is undo this multiplication, do a little division, divide by 3. You just need to make sure you divide each of these by 3. Distribute that 3. So here's what we get. Okay, y is equal to 5x minus 4. Now that we have it in this form, we can tell a lot about what that line's doing, where it's at, where it's going. Okay, so think about it for a second. What do you know about this line? What would it look like on a graph? Okay, where would you start if you were going to graph it? Where would you go once you started there? Okay, so some of the answers to this question is, what I see is this is an increasing line. It's going up. It's actually going up fairly quickly. It goes up 5 times faster than it goes over. So this is telling me 5 over 1, that's the rise over run. And it's positive, so it's going up. Up 5 over 1, up 5 over 1. Okay, and where is it in the grid? It's crossing at the -4 on the y. All right, so if you think about where the origin is 0, down 4, that's where our line is crossing the 0, and it's moving up quickly. So you should be able to, once you get it into this form, really kind of visualize what that line looks like, where it's at. Okay, and if you can't, then just keep working, keep practicing, keep doing problems and gridding if you can, and you'll get better at it. So let's keep going. Should be able to, I think you can manipulate the equations. That's not really what we're focused on in this video today. So let me know if you have trouble with that part. But So now let's take a look at how can we come up with an equation from a line, okay? And I think you all can do that. Let's start with this one, okay? So even without me really telling you exactly how to do it, why don't you try number 15, okay? Think about what I said earlier about what two things you need to graph or to find an equation of a line. Okay, you only need two things. And if you can get those from the graph, then you can write the equation, okay? So go ahead and pause your screen, see if you can do it. I'm gonna pause my screen and draw a grid here so that I can go over this with you real quick, okay? So give it a try. Okay, welcome back. So here is a rough estimate of what that looks like on the worksheet. And so when we look at this, we need to think about two things. What two things that we need from this line to write the equation of a line, okay? So always going back to y equals mx plus b, we need m and b, slope and the y-intercept. We can get both of those from this line, okay? Or from the line. So starting with the slope, we are going to first off decide, is this line an increasing line or is it a decreasing line? Okay, you should see this as an increasing line. From left to right, it's increasing. Okay, it's going up. So first off, we know that the slope, the number for the slope is going to be a positive number. Okay, the second part of slope that we need to figure out is the rise over run. So from one point to another. In this worksheet, they gave us kind of both of these points here. And so all we really need to do is see the two dimensions of that slope triangle, okay? The rise and the run. So it looks like it's a rise of 3 and a run of 2. So what we know about the equation of this line is y is equal to the slope attached to the x. And our last point is, where is it crossing? What's the y-intercept, okay? And so we can see that on a graph. Where is the line crossing the y? It's crossing at 2, positive 2. Okay? And so we have an equation that matches the line. Okay? So let's go back to our worksheet. Okay, there it is. Go back up to 14, okay? Try 14 real quick. Come back to me when you're done. Okay, so take a look at this next line. We need two things, slope and the y-intercept. That's all we need to write the equation of the line. So first off, we'll start with the slope, the m. It's increasing, so it's going to be a positive number. The rise over run, rise and run. Okay, rise and run. Rise is 1, run is 5. Attached to the x. Slope's always attached to the x. Y-intercept, where does it cross the y? So when we look here, we see it crosses the y at the origin, at 0. And so we're not going to put a plus 0 here or a minus 0. It's not plus or minus, right? It is nothing, and so we put nothing there. So the equation of this line is y is equal to 1/5 x.